Hi guys, so today I'm going to be filming 6 things that I wish I knew before I went into college auditions. It's a new setup. It feels kind of fancy, I don't know why. Okay, first thing that I wanted to touch on was how unbelievably hard and competitive the music programs are at a lot of schools, and as a result, like how draining that can be. I honestly thought like getting into music school was hard even before I started, but I didn't know to what extent, especially because everyone that's pursuing music is really good, because even the people that aren't pursuing music are really good. So that's something I always had in mind, but something that really put some perspective is when I attended Oberlin webinar, and there was a question. Someone asked, how many students are you planning to pick? They were saying, oh, it just depends on how many empty spaces the professor will have. Usually every year we have 3 open spaces per professor. And to put it into context, Oberlin has, I think, 3 or 4 violin professors, which means there are 12 open spaces out of like however many people that audition, which is probably well over like 1,000 or 2,000 people. Of course, they're gonna have to like keep into account like the yield, how many people will actually commit to Oberlin versus how many people they have to accept to like make up for that. But still, if you think about it, 12 open spaces out of however many people that auditioned is a really small percentage. And if you think about it, I think music is a really wide but small little bubble. The same people that you're competing against for spaces at Oberlin, you're also going to be competing with them, the same people, for spaces in like Northwestern or like Juilliard, Curtis, all these really competitive schools. You're going to be competing with the exact same people. Also, the thing about spaces is that for Oberlin, they're a purely undergraduate program, so you don't really have to worry too much about graduate students. But in other schools that do offer like graduate degrees or doctorate degrees, like you're going to have to win those spaces over while competing against those master's degree students and doctorate degree students. So that's something that I was really like surprised about, because when you search on Google like, oh, blank conservatory acceptance rate, it's gonna come up as like 9%, like 12%, 20%, 30%. To be honest, like I don't think those are accurate, and a friend of mine told me that those are actually probably the acceptance rate for non-performance majors. So in reality, the acceptance rates are much lower. Like who knows like how many violin performance majors they accept out of however many that audition, you know? So it's really like, I feel like it's really hidden away, like, because we don't really even know how many people are accepted and what the acceptance rate is and what we're really getting ourselves into when we're auditioning. So I just thought that was like really, it like blew me away. I was like, oh my goodness. But yeah, that's one thing that I really wish I knew. And also how draining the process is. I think this is kind of like self-explanatory, not really maybe, but all these auditions and trial lessons, what else, interviews, essay writing, college applications, they all happen within the same time period. It's really a lot coming in your direction. So, and it's something for you to handle, which is really difficult. And since most people are majoring in music because it's their passion, like, there's something like burning inside of you, you know, you love music and stuff. But personally for me, as all of these responsibilities came towards me, there was a massive burnout for me. Like even on top of the burnout I had felt before, there was more on top of that, and that was really overwhelming. But I think that's like just one more step to the process. That draining and exhausting feeling is just something that you have to go through. One thing that you should do after auditions is to give yourself a really long break. Not like a really long break, but like maybe a week-long break, or just give yourself a break. You deserve that. And without that, I feel like you can't really like continue, because you're still gonna feel some kind of like burden inside of you. For me, that's what I feel. The second thing that I really wish I knew is like how big of a learning experience this would be for me. Because like when I first came into this, I didn't know how much I was going to take away from this. Like, I do auditions all the time. How much of a different experience would this be? It's just gonna be really nerve-wracking, and I'm going to have a bunch of performance anxiety. That's honestly what I thought about it at first, but especially with trial lessons, especially even like within the audition experience, recording pre-screenings, all of these things, you like kind of rethink your values as a musician, and you take away so much as a person too, and definitely as a musician. And I think that was amazing that I could do that, because I feel like I progressed as a person and musician so much, to the point where I feel like I would have never gotten this experience or these kinds of realizations without being in the audition process. So it's really unique, and it's a different world from whatever I'd been doing in the past. The third thing that I want to touch on kind of goes off of the draining experience. Something that like furthers that draining experience a little bit more, and like that burnout more, is that you'll have to have 4 or 5 pieces that you practice over and over again. Like, you work on those 4 or 5 pieces for 2 years or maybe 3 years. Personally, for me, I've played the Beethoven concerto for like 2 years preparing for auditions, and then slowly I added in more pieces, and also I picked up pieces that I had played before, like the Mozart violin concerto and Bach adagio that I picked up again. On top of like having that exhausting life schedule, like that chaotic life schedule that makes it draining, you're going to have to play the same pieces for all of these auditions. I hate to say this, but it's really true. Once you start practicing those same pieces over and over again for such a long period of time, you kind of become disconnected to it. Like, you lose that initial like love for the piece that you initially had, you know? Like, for me, I feel like I would never be able to listen to any of my audition rep again in the same way that I did before. The fourth thing is adding on to the previous point that I already made. On top of the 4 to 5 pieces that you'll practice like every single day, like your college rep, you're going to have to keep up with like chamber music rep, and also orchestral rep if you do that, and any other like outside activities you have musically. I think I did not so great of a job on this, especially, I mean, both for chamber music and orchestral pieces. I feel like I kind of neglected orchestra and chamber music at times, because I had no choice but to prioritize my college auditions. Yeah, another thing that I noticed, like going off that note, is you really have to control how much musical activity that you do. I cut off on a lot of competitions, but even so, I participated in outside orchestra. I joined a pit orchestra at my school. I continued to do school orchestra. I also did a charity orchestra. I set up a new chamber group so that we could compete together later this year. And even then, I felt like I had bitten off too much for me to chew. It was too much for me to handle at one point, so it was kind of a breaking point for me. I think it's really, really important to have that knowledge of how much you can handle at that time and plan accordingly, because college auditions are truly such like a whirlwind of a time, as I'm sure it is for like every single major out there. But if you bite off too much for you to chew, if you do too much, then there's no way that you can keep on top of all of this repertoire and have it well prepared and perfected while, you know, keeping up this like college rep. Or at least that's how I feel. That's what I wish I knew. On to the fifth one. This is for me personally, but the month of January and February literally so packed with schedules. I literally had a trial lesson, orchestra, pit orchestra, audition literally every single day of the week, starting from like the second half of January to until recently, like the first half of February. That span of a month was literally the busiest month probably that I have ever had. And on top of that, I work, so like I had to like fit in like every little thing, and I was attending like full webinars, like interviews, like all of these things, and I was like, whew, that's too much to handle. And it's really hard if your university's time zone is different from your time zone, so you gotta also plan that accordingly. It's really hard because sometimes, especially for me, I decided to have trial lessons during the season of like college auditions, right? I pushed off trial lessons a lot, and I think I was like pretty late to them because I did a lot of them late January, early February, and a lot of people, I think they do them during the summer to see if they should apply to that school. It was still really helpful, like I don't regret anything, but just saying it was really, really busy. Around the time of maybe October, November, during these months, it was also really busy, but it wasn't as busy for me than like January and February. And that's because of the pre-screening recordings that you're going to have to make. And so the number one thing I would say about recordings is do not procrastinate. I always told myself, like when I watched other musicians saying like, oh, don't procrastinate, I thought like, oh, isn't that like a given? Like that's so obvious. Like why would I ever procrastinate on my own college auditions? But being in that place, it's so draining, and it's such a like weird cycle that I just kept procrastinating even though I knew I shouldn't. And the sixth and final thing that I want to touch on today is trial lessons and how much they really, really help. As you've seen in the previous video I uploaded, I don't know if it's going to be my previous video, but like my trial lesson vlog video, I got really, really emotional about a lot of auditions, or not auditions, trial lessons that I had with professors. And it's not because I was sad or anything, it was just like so overwhelming at how understanding they were and how much I realized through that as a person, as a musician. To a lot of people, or at least for me until high school, I always thought like, oh, I should go to Juilliard, like I should go to Coburn. Like obviously there's like that skill level where you have to be to go to those really top schools, but at the same time, I think I had that perception because of the extremely low acceptance rates at those schools and the reputation that has to people. But I feel like what's more important than that percentage is the professors that teach there, because that's ultimately who you're going to be studying with. And you know, teachers make students. Like teachers really, really affect how the student like shapes themselves as a musician, and teachers can really affect how much of the student's full potential they can like grow up to, you know. And you have to find a professor that really clicks with you, and that might be different for everyone. That is different for everyone. It really introduces yourself to the professor to see if they think they can work with you, but also it's really important for you as a student, because you can see if you vibe with their teaching style, if you can grow to your max potential with their instruction, and also if they make you, or like how they make you feel, you know. They embrace you, embrace everything you have, and then help you grow from those imperfections. You always come out of that lesson feeling comforted, feeling accepted, feeling like you've grown. And I think that's a really, really ideal environment for you to find. Every single professor out there that teaches is top tier in their own way. It's just based on who you click with and who you match well with and who you can grow the most with, because everyone learns differently, as well as, you know, the fact that everyone teaches differently. Those are the 6 things that I really wanted to touch on today. And I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I hope it helped in some way, or like fed you guys a little bit of information that you guys didn't know. But yeah, there's so much college content coming up. It feels so weird. It feels real now, and I don't know how to feel about it. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!